I was diagnosed with severe anxiety 4 years ago, and I'm here to tell you guys that anxiety, depression, all of these things, they are not conditions. Society tricks us into thinking that they're conditions. They trick us into making us more anxious, into making us feed further into our fears and our negative thoughts. But the reality is, all of these feelings, anxiety included, these are consequences. These are consequences of believing in your fears more than your faith. These are consequences in believing in your fears a lot more than yourself. And a lot of us are scared to admit that we don't believe in ourselves. A lot of us say, well, of course I'm confident in myself. Of course I feel like I could do good. But your self-talk and what goes on in your head when you're moving through life and making decisions is really what is going to determine how far you get. It's really going to determine, what gets in your way and what doesn't, and the quality of life that you live. I thought that a good quality of life was only subjective to people that were meant to have that quality of life. And I do believe in faith and paths and things like that, but I also believe in manifestation and hard work, just simply hard work. I've been through crazy stuff, hell and back, and one thing that I can say humbly, especially being from where I'm from in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, like I've seen people live 20 times worse than I did, even at my worst moment. And sometimes certain people look at my worst moment and couldn't even imagine that. And I'm growing up around people who are living 20 times worse than that, 10 times worse than that. So you just have to understand that everyone has struggles, and your struggle may be hard right now, but it's part of your journey. And by no means am I trying to be a therapist or, give you guys misleading advice. But what I am is, first of all, a man of God, a Christian, and second off, after that, a business owner, an entrepreneur. That's what I talk about a lot on my channel, is entrepreneurship and success and just the journey to get there. And I'm one of the people that loves the journey. I love going through the ups and downs. I love the downs just as much as I love the ups, and I learned to love them. I wasn't always that type of person. I used to think negative. I used to let my bad habits and my bad environments take over my reality and my situation and take over what I do. And now I'm no longer living in that. I'm living in faith. I'm living in progression. I'm living in things that serve me and serve God. So now that I've made that change to my life, I feel like I have to spread the word. I feel like I have to spread the knowledge, because I say it in every video. Yes, it might be cliche, it might sound repetitive, but what you have to understand is there's somebody that clicks on this video and they need to hear this. There's somebody that clicks on this video and they're in the same position that I was in 4 years ago, in the same position I was in even 2 years ago, where, I hit rock bottom. And I'm here to tell you, I feel y'all. I wish that when I was going through these times, I would have stumbled upon, a video like this to just lead me in the right direction. I'm not here to, tell you guys that you don't have certain disabilities or disorders that you might have been diagnosed with. I myself have been diagnosed with severe anxiety. I have medication and everything like that. But I just want you to understand that depression, anxiety, all of these types of disorders and all of these types of behavioral disorders come from the enemy. And that's what you have to understand. It says it in the word. And I used to not understand that. I grew up lukewarm Christian. So I would, be around people in my family and stuff like that were Christian. And they would just act like they don't stress. They just put their trust in God. They don't worry. They just put their trust in God. And I used to just feel like that was so delusional, just being honest. When I wasn't walking in faith, when I didn't have that connection with Jesus Christ, and I wasn't, connected with God, I thought they were being delusional. I'm like, how are you not depressed? How are you not anxious when X, Y, and Z is going on? And it's a simple answer. You don't need everything to be going perfect in your life. You don't need everything to be going the way that you want it to go. All that you need is a good relationship with God, and a good enough relationship to be able to understand and hear his voice. Once you know how to do that, then you'll know how to move in your life. Then you'll have clarity. Once you pray for clarity, you'll get clarity. Once you pray for discernment, you'll get discernment. And once you have those types of things, you'll be able to move through life a lot more smooth. I'm not saying that you can just pray all your anxiety and your depression away, but what I'm saying is the closer you get to God and the more you trust in him, the less likely you are to be anxious, the less likely you are to be depressed, because you'll have a lot more to be grateful for, and you'll express a lot more gratitude. And see, fear and faith both require you to believe in something that you can't see. Fear is you're believing that something negative is going to happen, but you just don't know yet, but you think that. Faith is believing that something good is going to happen, or believing in something of a higher power like the Lord and Savior. So you have to ask yourself, which one are you choosing to believe more? Are you going to believe in your obstacles, or are you going to believe in your outcome? Are you going to believe in, oh, I have this happening to me and my food stamps getting cut off and my bank account on negative and my credit cards in collections? Or are you going to focus on, I have another day to start over. I have another day to work towards my goal. I have another day to start planning. The tongue is so powerful, so speak with intention. A lot of people speak negative things, whether they're mentally or out loud amongst their friends. They joke about, oh man, I'm broke, or they joke about, or they just complain or gossip. I know so many people in life that used to call me often and just gossip or just complain about what's going on in their life and just say so many negative things. And the reality is, they're going through that day to day. They're thinking about it all day. Then they're calling me to talk about it, and they're expecting the majority of people to just feed into that negativity and to continue to be negative with them. I see people that, they'll come to me being negative, being sad, and, I'll be like, everything will be all right, man. Like, just trust in God, lock in. Everything's going to be good. Just giving them a very positive vibration. They almost get mad. It's like they want to hear something negative. They want it to further fuel that fire. And that comes from the enemy, y'all. I'm telling you, it doesn't matter if you're a believer. The enemy is very, very strong, and he's going to try to do every single thing he can to put a chokehold on you. But understanding that just as how strong he is, God is way, way stronger, y'all. So start believing in him, start trusting in him, and start putting your belief in faith and not fear. Stop falling for the trap. Stop falling for the insecurities and the anxious feelings and the fears and the depressions, and start living for you in a better quality of life. See, a lot of these goals and ambitions that we have in our head, God puts them in our head, and he only really will put the goal and ambition in our head, and he'll kind of give us that bait. He'll give us the idea. He'll give us that light bulb, and some of us pursue it and go after it all we can. Some of us pursue it and give it, 50%, and some of us just ignore it and move on throughout life. And, if you go that first route and you pursue it and you put your 100% in, you're going to get that goal at the end of the day with proper manifestation, living in faith, and applying the appropriate actions to get to that next level. You're going to unlock so many different levels of life and so many different levels of yourself that are going to really turn you into a better person overall. And a lot of people avoid the journey. They want the goal, but they avoid the journey. A lot of people, they might say, hey, I want this car, but they don't understand that they're going to have to go through starting up a business and growing and scaling that business, and then trying to stop that business from failing and all of that if their goal is to get that car, and if their steps require them to start up a business for that, like that's just an example. Like, I want you guys to understand that God's going to show you the goal. He's going to show you the motive. He's going to show you whatever it is you want in life, even if it's not materialistic, even if you want to spend more time with your kids. I see a lot of entrepreneurs like that. A lot of entrepreneurs, they have family or kids or whoever, people that around them that are close, and time is the most important thing. Time is crucial. Time with people around you, time with your loved ones, time working on your business, and time management is key. And a lot of you guys have to get your time shifted in different types of areas, based off of what you have going on in life. Some people work jobs, so they have to get their time put in a job for 8 hours, or some people, run a business and their business isn't there yet, so they have to put 13, 14 hours a day in their business, so understanding that time is very, very, very crucial. And the sooner you can let go of these bad habits, the sooner you can let go of these negative feelings in your heart, the sooner you can better utilize your time. Why would you want to sit in the crib in a depressive episode and sit here and be in the house for days and not doing anything productive and scrolling on social media and becoming more depressed and putting your phone on D&D? And like, why do you want to live in those times? Why do you want to waste hours like that or days like that? Or why do you want to be so anxious that you have all of these good ideas that you want to try and explore in life, and your time is ticking? All of us have an expiration date at the end of the day. So understanding that you're blessed every single day to wake up, but any day could be your last day. So why not put forth the most 100% best effort you could every single day to try to get to that best quality of life, to try to set your life up for success and try to set your life up for the best quality of life? It doesn't matter what your motive is. It might not be material, but if it's that freedom aspect like I was talking about, or if it's family, whatever it is, use that motive and remind yourself of that every single day. If your kids push you, put them on your lock screen every single day. If your kid, and know that that's your motive, and know that once you pray that to God every single night and you're letting him know that, God, I want to let go of these feelings of anxiety. I want to let go of these feelings of depression. I want to let go of these feelings of fear and hurt and doubt and self disapproval. Once you pray those things and you actively work on the things you need to work on internally to get there, the sooner you're going to let them go. And I promise you're going to unlock a whole different level of life once you do that. This is bigger than, just talking about anxiety or depression or whatever. This is about talking about you leveling up and getting to your best level of life. The biggest battle you'll have in life is your own mental. It's going to be you versus you. The biggest battles I've ever had in life have been me versus me. Anything that's been around me that's been physical or emotional or whatever, I'm able to sustain. But the biggest battle I have is between myself, because you're your own strongest enemy. You know all your weak points. You know all your anxieties. You know all your depressions. You know all of your traumas. You know all of your weak points. You know all of your anxieties. You know all of your things that make you depressed and the things that make you anxious. And you'll sometimes use those against yourself subconsciously. You won't even know, and you'll be your own worst enemy because you know yourself better. They say keep friends close, keep enemies closer. Sometimes you guys are your own enemy and you're the closest person you could ever be to yourself. So understanding that a lot of that stuff has to change if you want to change. Nothing changes if you don't change. Understand that change takes first realization. That's the first part of the equation, and after that, then action. A lot of people, they'll realize something and they won't take the action, or a lot of people just won't realize it altogether with, and that's the quickest way to be lost in life. That's the quickest way to be lost in business, and that's the quickest way to be lost towards your goals. Understanding that success is everyone's goal at the end of the day. I don't care what you define success as. Success does not have to be monetary. You can have a lot of money and not be successful. You can have the nicest car and not be successful. You can have the biggest house and not be successful. Success has a different meaning for everybody, but for me and for a lot of the people in the world that believe in the same thing as me, which is the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, success is living and fulfilling your God-given purpose and serving God's kingdom in the best way you can, and gaining abundance in life from doing so. That is success. You're successfully fulfilling your purpose in life. You're successfully adding positivity and abundance in God's kingdom, and now you're reaping the benefits and the fruits of that. And once you live in that life, once you are walking in that, I feel like that is true success. I feel like that is true richness. A lot of people ask, what is being rich? I don't look at being rich as money. If I say I'm rich in faith. I'm rich in life. I'm rich in abundance, and not just money. I'm rich in love, abundance of love, people around me that love me. I'm rich in the abundance of community. I'm growing a small community even here on YouTube, and the love that I'm getting is just so crazy, and I'm beyond blessed. So understanding that you'll gain those fruits of your labor and those fruits of your faith once you walk in that. But the first step is realization and then action. Anxiety is a result of trying to control things that you can never control. Oftentimes, I used to find myself getting very anxious, very disappointed, very sad, very depressed, and things in life that I couldn't control, things that weren't really in my control. For example, a lot of y'all knew that I was in the military. I was in the military for 4 years. I joined when I was 18, got out when I was like 22, and the thing with that is the military was rocky for me. It was overall a good experience. I'm not going to speak negative on it. I love to serve and stuff like that. But what I will say is I had a lot of changes in my life from that time. And one of the things that changed was my power over my life, my authority over my life. The military taught me a lot of different things, but one thing it did snatch away from me was control. I was no longer in control of, how long I work or where I go to work or what conditions I work in or what time I eat. A lot of y'all, work jobs and be like, oh, well, the military is just like a job. No, it's different. That's a lifestyle. So for someone like me, especially someone who almost has like an OCD type of mindset, I've never been diagnosed with OCD, but I'm very, very strict to routine. That's why I always speak on that. Like, routine is key. Everything got to be on my own timing or I just go crazy mentally. So like that was one thing that the military really made me work on, and it really helped me grow as a man and even as a Christian, especially because now I understand patience. Now I understand having to wait. Now I understand delayed gratification. And there was a point in time in my life where I wanted to put in a 2-week notice so bad at my job because I was literally miserable, but I was locked into a 4-year contract with the government. I couldn't quit. There was no good way for me to get out. So I feel like once you experience something like that in life, you really get humbled and you start to understand, what control is. And that's something that I can't control. You know, I signed a contract. That was my time to control it before I signed the contract. Once I signed the contract, I put all the control into their hands. So I can no longer quit. I can no longer, you know, control my life. I can no longer pick which time I go to the gym and pick which time I do my homework and pick which time I work out. Every single thing was up to them. And that was a very, very humbling experience. And every day for, you know, the first couple 2 years even I was in, I used to struggle really, really bad because I had issues with letting go of that control. And I was stressing over something I could no longer control. I no longer could control the control of my life. You know, that was gone. I already put it in the hands of somebody else, and I was sitting here stressing out every single day instead of putting my faith in God and understanding that he wouldn't have let me make that decision if it wasn't going to lead me into the right direction, and understanding that right now I might be in a valley. Right now I might not love the conditions of my life or love what I'm doing, but understanding that there's a greater future for me. And little did I know 4 years later I would be running 3 very, very successful businesses. Little did I know 3 years later I would almost be retiring myself at a young age. So like, it's just a blessing to be able to say that. And I'm telling y'all these things not to put myself on a pedestal, not to say how great I am, because I could sit here and throw a 2 hour long yapping video about how bad I am and all the flaws that I've had in life. But if I can say that about myself, and I can say how much I struggled, and I can say how much I didn't start with, that's motivation for you guys to understand that you can make that your reality as well. I didn't think so. I used to be so negative. I was a negative person. I was an anxious person. I was living in fear. I was living in doubt. And once I learned to let that go and give it to God, and I really submitted myself to God, and I really started just trusting in him and his plan for me, that's when everything flourished in my life. And I'm not saying that you're going to trust in God and all your fears and anxieties are going to go away 100%. That would be a lie. I'm not saying that you're going to put your trust in God and you're never going to be tested again. If anything, you're going to get tested more. But understanding that once you start having that overlook on life and you start applying that, it's going to get a lot easier. It's going to get a lot easier for you to reach your goals. It's going to get a lot easier for you to live a happier life. It's going to be a lot easier for you to manifest positivity, because if you're living in a reality of fear, a reality of anxiety, how could you even see something positive for yourself? How could you even manifest? How could you even see goals? And how could you even set goals and want to achieve them? Because you're so sad and fearful and anxious in your mind. You're not even happy with your day-to-day self. So how can you even think about something in the future? So understanding that a lot of you guys are holding yourself back due to these feelings that come from the enemy. And the first step is realization. The next step is action or execution. Now you guys might watch this video and it might hit you hard and be like, dang, well, I'm anxious, or dang, I've been this, or I'm that. Don't take it and get offended. Take it and take action. And stop letting it have control over you, because I was in the chokehold of anxiety for a very, very long time. I was in the chokehold of all of the tests and things that the enemy was throwing in my way to try to get me in bad places of life, to try to get me to submit to the world, to try to get me to submit to addiction, to try to get me to submit to him. And the only person I submit to is God, my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. So understanding that that's the outlook you need to have on life. It's not going to be all rainbows and sunshine. You know, you're going to have to go through some valleys. You're going to have to go through some hard times, but the hard times make you, they don't break you. So if you're feeling anxious, just start taking authority of your thoughts. Start trusting in God. Start redirecting your mind when the enemy puts those negative thoughts and those fearful thoughts and those anxious thoughts in your head. Start redirecting them and understanding that this is a trial and tribulation. This is a storm. God has a plan for me. This is not my final destination. And I promise you, your outlook on life is going to be a whole lot better. Build organization and systems in your life, and stop putting so much energy on things that shouldn't stress you out. A lot of you guys have so much tedious tasks and tedious things and busy work and busyness that pops up in your day, and you have so many things to stress about, and you're just adding to your plate. So figure out a way to restructure that, even if it takes some financial gain. I had to do that the other day. You know, get your feng shui right, get your office right, get your area right, to where now you can really lock in and focus. And just get it in motion. Clarity is going to come through action, not overthinking. A lot of you guys will sit here and be anxious or overthink on these ideas and goals that you have. And in reality, you waste more time thinking about them and thinking about the negative outcomes that they may or may not have, when you could have put that same time into that idea and put it into motion. And even if you failed, you would have learned from that failure and now you would have bounced back 100 times better. I think a lot of you guys look at failure the wrong way, and that's why you guys are so anxious and scared to fail. A lot of you guys are looking at failure as, oh, I failed, I can't do this again. I look at failure as, oh, I learned something from this. Now I can try it without doing it this way. I can check this off the list of ways to do this. You know, like a lot of you guys just are scared that if you put in so much effort into something and it doesn't work out, that's just it. Try again, get up and try again. Like, do you think some of the best people in the world, you think some of the best fighters in the world never got knocked out? Do you think some of the best ball players in the world never got injured or never got put on a bench? Like, you have to understand that everybody fails in life, and the way that you react to these things determines your outcome. You know, you can determine if you get that championship ring or if you only play in college. You can determine if you go to the Super Bowl or if you get kicked off the team, you know, like, and I don't even know about sports. I'm just talking analogies, right? But understanding that God has a bigger plan for y'all in life. A lot of y'all will go through negative things in life and ask God or ask yourself, why me? Why me? Why me? A lot of y'all should just be grateful that it's you, even if it's something negative. Understanding that something big might come out of this, even if it's in a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Eventually, one of the things that you thought was the biggest obstacle and and inconvenience in life might be one of the biggest blessings you had in disguise. So just understanding you have to have a shift in mindset. And I know it's hard to do. I know it sounds so cliche. I know a lot of y'all that are in that negative mindset, and especially a lot of y'all that have the enemy in your mind, you're going to watch this video and be like, tsk. There's another one of those dudes trying to speak that positivity into the YouTube space and stuff like that, and motivation stuff. But I'm telling y'all, this stuff really works, man. Like, I lived a really bad life and I lived a really good life, and I lived a really bad life again, and now I live a really great life. All glory to God. So understanding that that's the first step in life, and the sooner you can let go of your anxieties, the sooner you can work on that business, the sooner you can work on that goal, the sooner you can work towards your future. Stop living in the past and stop worrying about the present and just start living for the future. So a lot of y'all live in the past and then you're stressing in the present. Live in the present and work towards the future. Understanding that once you start applying that recipe to life, everything's going to flourish. You're going to be set up for life. Your family after you is going to be set up for life. And freedom is the best thing you can have. Freedom mentally, freedom financially, freedom spiritually, just being free. If you're tired of living in anxiety, just take that step. First, ask yourself if this is you. And even if you say it's no, make sure it's not you. And then even if you say it's no, make sure it's not you again. If it's still no, move on from the video. You know, drop a like, drop a comment, something like that. But if that is you, okay, you understood it, you realized it, take the step to change it. Take the step to make your life better. Take the step to stop being so anxious, because why live in anxiety when you could live in happiness? You know, being happy and being peaceful is a choice at the end of the day. Like, circumstances can, you know, determine how much of those emotions you feel, but understanding that the sooner you live in positivity, you attract positivity. So I hope I reach somebody today, and y'all stay blessed.